Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Anna Marie Bishop Harris.
Thank you so much, Madam Technology Chair, for that introduction. I appreciate all of the efforts that you have given to us this evening. Know that you are appreciated. Let me welcome everyone within the sound of my voice to this magical evening. As we all know, we're living in precarious times. And as we all know, the world is growing smaller and smaller and smaller. And the fact that you have shown up to welcome and help me greet this most esteemed panel this evening shows me that you are in fact in the know, that you are highly intelligent. You are in fact an international citizen. So welcome to our round table. We welcome you with open arms, open hearts, and I want to let you know this evening, the mere fact that you have the intellect, the mere fact that you have the exposure to join us here lets me know that you are movers, shakers, and indeed history makers. So welcome, sit back and get ready for one of the most iconic panels I have ever seen assembled for the Eastern area. Get ready. Thank you so much, Dr. Cynthia Jacobs Carter and Dr. Constance Moss, for being the absolute international dream team. You've done it this time. With every correspondence about a new panelist, my excitement heightened. Get ready to be enriched. And thank you all for being here. Without further ado, it is my great privilege to introduce our esteemed Eastern Area Director, Dr. Shawana Tucker-Sims. Shawana, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Anna Maria, and good evening. And thanks to each and every one of you for ending the celebration of Women's Month with us. It is truly my privilege to greet you on behalf of the officers, leadership team, and members of the Eastern area of the Links Incorporated. In the Links, we celebrate women because we are an organization founded by women whose leaders and members are women who do service in communities where women live and work. This evening's program takes its name from the United Nations theme for the month, Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow. There are several ways this theme speaks to me, primary of which is that women are sustainers. We help nurture, connect, build, and lead families, communities, and countries. So when we support equality for women and girls to access education, compensation, healthcare, and voting, to name a few, we are sustaining households, families, and communities as well. Our reach extends into several countries on the continent of Africa, and you will hear more about our programs to support STEM education later in the program. We are very honored to have such an esteemed group joining us this evening. I want to extend our thanks and appreciation for their participation, and they will be formally introduced later. We are excited about this evening's program, which is being hosted by our Eastern Area International Trends and Services Committee in partnership with the United Nations Association of the USA. A special thanks to our International Trends and Services Committee for putting this outstanding program together, chaired by Dr. Cynthia Jacobs Carter and co-chaired by Dr. Constance Moss. We're looking forward to learning, appreciating, and growing our support of women through programs like this. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Cynthia Jacobs Carter for the next part of our program. Dr. Carter.
There we go. I'm now unmuted. So yes, indeed, what a pleasure it is to be here with you this evening. And I thank you, Dr. Shawana Tucker-Sims, for your excellent leadership, because without you, we would not be here tonight. That is very, very true. You are indeed the sunshine of our lives. And as a woman who is so accomplished you really encourage us to do the same, to go for our dreams and to make this world a better place. And what better night to do this than the night that we are culminating Women's History Month, International Women's Month. This month goes by many names. So you're going to meet some wonderful guests tonight, and you're going to hear about her story. That is the other part. From their own words, in their own words, you're going to hear from many of our supporters who could also be male. We need them too. So here we go. I want to introduce the co-chair of the International Trends and Services. She is the person that I work most closely with in this wonderful organization that we have the great good fortune to service. And her name is Dr. Constance Moss, PhD. I'll stick that on the end as well. I'll tell you, she is a business owner. She is a project manager. She is a holder of a PhD in educational leadership. That's just a part of it. Maybe she'll tell you a little bit about herself, but I do know one of the things that she does that is really great, and that is to lead the charge for the work that we're doing in Monrovia. So without further ado, I will say, Dr. Constance, my partner in International Trends and Services, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Jacobs Carter. I really appreciate that introduction. Again, I am Dr. Constance Moss, and I am delighted to serve in the appointed position of co-chair of the Eastern area of the Links Incorporated International Trends and Services facet, as well as the liaison for Monrovia, Liberia, located in West Africa. My strong interest in international affairs and strategic planning of sustainable service and high quality program made this appointment a good fit. During this International Women's Month, it is certainly an honor to recognize and join in the celebration of accomplishments of phenomenal women across the globe, and in particular, those who have contributed to the Eastern Area's international trends and services work being conducted in Monrovia, Liberia. We celebrate the impactful and transformative international service being provided by women through well thought out partnerships. Over these past few years, numerous collaborations have been established and lifelong friendships have been formed, and I will name just a few. The International Trends and Services facet of the Eastern area of the Links Incorporated had the distinct pleasure of partnering with Sharon Kent, Program Director for Our Money Matters, an HBCU Community Development Action Coalition program. Mrs. Kent offered engaging workshops to staff and high school students of Monrovia College. In partnership with diplomat Kendra Kirkland of the United Nations, we developed and presented interactive international diplomacy workshops that corresponded to the curriculum for graduate students of AME University. Diplomat Kirkland engaged students in thought-provoking simulations by using the My Diplomat app from our partners at the United Nations, as well as insightful sessions related to foreign policy. ITS is very proud of the collaborations with other facet chairs that resulted in impressive program implementation at both schools in Monrovia. Carol Council, the chair of the Eastern Area's Art facet, has provided stellar leadership to an incredibly creative team of women who have seamlessly brought opportunities for international artistic engagement and expression of students of Monrovia College through the Young Masters 2.0 program. Marilyn Dillon and Alice Cole are to be applauded for their work and commitment to exemplary programming. Likewise, under the impeccable leadership of Crystal Davis, the chair of the Eastern Area's Service to Youth facet, Stacy Mangum, and Cherie Amato demonstrated their incredible talents to bring out the best in others. Through their tireless efforts and gift of leadership, they collaborated with others to design STEM computer training modules for Monrovia College and enjoyed rousing success during the call for STEM mentors to sign up to teach the classes. And of course, to our wonderful and supportive Eastern area leaders who have made this all possible. Madam Eastern Area Director, Dr. Shawana Tucker Sims, Madam Eastern Area Program Chair, Mrs. Anna Maria Bishop Harris, and Madam Eastern Area International Trends and Services Facet Chair, Dr. Cynthia Jacobs Carter. Your vision and leadership in international trends and services has been exemplary and is to be applauded during this celebration of International Women's Month. Thank you very much. Now back to you, Dr. Carter.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moss. So now we have the great opportunity to learn just a bit more about International Women's Day and International Women's Month. We will now learn all about this from the United Nations Chief Secretary General, Antonio Guterres. He will bring greetings, and we'll see you on the other side.
On International Women's Day, we celebrate women and girls everywhere. We celebrate their contributions to ending the COVID-19 pandemic. Their ideas, innovations, and activism that are changing our world for the better, and their leadership across all walks of life. But we also recognize that in too many areas, the clock on women's rights is moving backwards. The pandemic has kept girls and women out of schools and workplaces. They face rising poverty and rising violence. They do the vast majority of the world's unpaid but essential care work. They are targets of violence and abuse just because of their gender. In all countries, women are scandalously underrepresented in the halls of power and the boardrooms of business. And as this year theme reminds us, they bear the brunt of climate change and environmental degradation. Starting now on International Women's Day, it's time to turn the clock forward for every woman and girl. Through guaranteeing quality education for every girl, so they can build the lives they want and help make the world a better place for us all. Through massive investments in women's training and decent work. Through effective action to end gender-based violence. Through bold action to protect our planet. Through universal care that is fully integrated into social protection systems, and through targeted measures like gender quotas so we can all benefit from women's ideas, experience, and leadership everywhere decisions are made. Gender inequality is essentially a question of power in a male-dominated world and a male-dominated culture, and power relations must be reversed. So, at the United Nations, we have achieved gender parity in senior management at headquarters and around the world, improving our work and better representing the communities we serve.
That are coming from individuals.
We need more women, environment ministers, business leaders, and presidents and prime ministers. They can push countries to address the climate crisis, develop green jobs, and build a more just and sustainable world. We cannot emerge from the pandemic with the clock spinning backwards on gender equality. We need to turn the clock forward on women's rights. The time is now.
Indeed, the time is now. And now we are about to begin our program in earnest. Tonight you will meet and you will learn so much more about our special guests, Executive Director Rachel Pittman. I will introduce her more in a moment, but you will meet Her Excellency Hilda Suka Mafutse, ambassador to the African Union, you will meet His Excellency George Patton, Liberian ambassador to the United States. You will also meet the Honorable Tita V. Banks, our extraordinary moderator and partner and our link sister. So hold on to your seat because we are about to take off. Thank you so much. And I will now say that our wonderful partnership with the United Nations USA began several years ago. Actually, that partnership for me began in Northern Virginia, where I live, where I met Miss Rachel Pittman. She volunteered very often to come and talk to girls and boys and to teach them all about international affairs. This would be elementary school students and high school students. And I've never forgotten her kindness and her generosity. So when we had an opportunity to possibly partner further with this particular organization, I thought of her, asked her, and she was very willing to do so. She's going to tell you a little bit more about herself, but I will tell you that she, before becoming the executive director in 2019, she served as the senior director of membership and programs. And she has done so much more, including global engagement programs and summits, global leadership summits in Washington, DC and elsewhere. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to Rachel Bowen Pittman. And if I mispronounce your name, please forgive me.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Carter, for welcoming me and giving me the opportunity to address the esteemed Eastern area of the Links Incorporated about the work of UNA USA, and also just to celebrate Women's History Month. For those of you who are unfamiliar with UNA USA, we're a grassroots movement of Americans with 20,000 members in 225 chapters across the nation. We are dedicated to our mission to educate, inspire, and mobilize Americans to support the principles and vital work of the United Nations and its agencies. This is achieved through civic engagement, which involves public events, community partnerships, volunteering, and grassroots advocacy. As for me, in 2019, I became the first female and first African-American executive director of UNA USA, which has been in existence for more than 76 years when the UN was founded. While this is a first for this position, female volunteer leadership in UNA USA has been prevalent since former First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt was a founding member and chairwoman of the board. She launched many UNA USA chapters across the country after shepherding the UN Declaration of Human Rights to completion in 1948. Furthermore, in my 6 years at UNA USA, all the elected National Council chairs, including the esteemed Dr. Tita Banks, who you'll hear from tonight, have been women. And many of the UNA USA chapters are led by women. At UNA USA, our chapters and the UNA Women Affinity Group are dedicated to advocating for UN programs that expand women and girls' rights and promotes women empowerment globally. We host educational programs on issues such as pay equality, gender-based violence, and women in politics. We conduct outreach to members of Congress to provide funding for UN agencies like UNICEF, UN Women, and UNFPA, the UN Sexual and Reproductive Health Agency. We advocate to our local governments to address issues such as education, maternal health, and hunger. And we volunteer with organizations that support women and girls, from homeless shelters to refugee agencies. I share all of this with you because, as the UN Secretary General pointed out, there is so much work to be done. In order to have gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow, it is going to take all of us. which is why I'm honored that UNA USA has partnered with the Eastern area of the Links Incorporated, because we too believe in your commitment to make a difference by delivering transformational programming in our communities. Together, our engagement will help advance the United Nations work, which will positively impact women and girls locally and around the world. I'm excited about our future collaborations, and I look forward to connecting you with our UNA USA chapters and our UNA Women Affinity Group. Thank you once again for inviting me to participate this evening. Now, at this time, I have the honor to introduce Dr. Tita Banks, who is also UNA USA's immediate past chair of our National Council and the first African-American chair of our National Council. Dr. Banks is an educator, writer, civil rights advocate, and diplomat. Originally from Monrovia, Liberia, Dr. Banks spent her childhood in Detroit, Michigan, where her parents were civic and religious leaders, as well as educators who were directly involved in the civil rights movement. Dr. Banks was appointed as a liaison for the White House Initiative on Black Colleges and Universities, and continues to work on and research issues regarding historical Black colleges and universities. She serves on the faculty at Prairie View A&M University of the Texas A&M University System and is chair of the Humanities Program. Furthermore, Dr. Banks also serves as a consultant to the Embassy of the Republic of Liberia and is the Honorary Consul General of the Republic of Liberia in Houston. Dr. Banks, I would like to turn over the program to you. You're on mute.
There, thank you. Thank you, Rachel, for the introduction and welcome. And thank you for your leadership at the UNA USA. I also want to acknowledge and thank Dr. Shawana Tucker-Sims, Eastern Area Director, Ms. Anna Maria Bishop Harris, Eastern Area Programs Coordinator, Dr. Cynthia Jacobs Carter, and Dr. Constance Moss, Chair and Co-Chair of Eastern Area International Trends and Services, for inviting me to participate in this exciting and historic session. This session's theme, Her Story, Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow, closes the 2022 Women's History Month. And it also signals the recommitment of the Links Incorporated to the UN's Agenda 2030 global goals and the introduction to the African Union's 2063 goals, which you'll hear a little bit more about later. In 2015, the United Nations established the Sustainable Development Goals, global goals with a target date of 2030 for achievement. We're now in the midst of what's called Agenda 2030, or the Decade of Action. Goal number 5 is gender equality, achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. The African Union has Agenda 2063, and agenda goal number 17 is full gender equality in all spheres of life. This includes women and girls empowerment and eliminating violence and discrimination against women and girls. We know that there is intersectionality of all of these goals. So the overriding questions are where we will talk about these goals. Where are we with these goals and the agenda in regard to African women? And how can we as links be change agents for progress in these areas? In 1892, Dr. Anna Julia Cooper wrote these prophetic and challenging words that most of us are very familiar with. Only the Black woman can say, when and where I enter, in the quiet, undisputed dignity of my womanhood, without violence and without suing or special patronage, then and there, the whole race enters with me. It is this realization that is our purpose today. In our Black history, as we discuss it in America, we do not begin 400 years ago with the importation of Blacks in America, but rather we lift up our great African ancestry because we know the blood runs through our veins, even though we are oceans and millennia apart. So we lift up the greatness in the names of Queen Nefertiti, Queen Cleopatra of Egypt, Makeda, Queen of Sheba, Queen Nandi of Southern Africa, Queen Candace of Ethiopia, Queen Amina of Nigeria, Queen Mbandi of Angola, and the list continues. Our great history of women achieving and contributing to the progress of nations is outstanding and continues. The separation of our people throughout the diaspora, whether through the transatlantic slave trade, colonization, war, or natural disasters, has impacted all of us greatly. Wherever we find ourselves, we have met the challenges and held on to the great spirits and great strengths of our ancestors. For this historic dialogue, it is my honor to introduce two outstanding global leaders and diplomats, Her Excellency Hilda Suka Mafudza and His Excellency George S.W. Patton Sr. He will be represented, however, by Deputy Chief, Madam Genevieve Woodston of the Liberian Embassy. Let me tell you a little bit about Ambassador Patton, so you know who our ambassador is that's represented here in the US. He's a career diplomat with more than 2 decades of experience in the Liberian Foreign Service. He served in various capacities at the Liberian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Prior to his appointment as Ambassador Extraordinaire of Liberia to the United States of America, he served as Chargé d'Affaires at the Permanent Mission of Liberia to the UN and Ambassador Extraordinaire of Liberia to Ethiopia and Kenya. He also served as permanent representative of Liberia to the African Union and the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. As the ambassador of Liberia to the US, he is entirely committed to strengthening the deep and long-standing historical and cultural ties subsisting between Liberia and the United States. Our other honored guest is Ambassador Hilda Suka Mafudza. She's a permanent representative of the African Union to the United States of America. Her core mandate is to enhance and maintain existing bilateral ties. These ties strengthen democratic institutions, advance trade and investment, knowledge sharing, promotes peace and security, mutual relationships between US and all 55 African Union member countries based on culture and shared values. A career diplomat with experience that spans the African continent, Her Excellency assumed her most recent duties on November 2nd, 2020. Prior to coming to the US, she helped lead diplomacy for more than 2 decades in a variety of top government positions in her home country of Zimbabwe. Well known as a quiet champion of democracy, Her Excellency held ambassadorial positions representing her country in Khartoum, Sudan, and South Sudan between 2010 and 2019, and most recently in the Republic of Malawi. Her Excellency served as an elected member of Zimbabwe's parliament from 2000 to 2005. As one of the few women parliamentarians, she was an influential voice committed to ensuring Zimbabwe's laws were balanced and served the interests of the poor and other marginalized groups, women, youth, the elder, and children. At this time, I give the floor to my friend and sister, Her Excellency Ambassador Hilda Suka Mafudza, for her opening remarks. Your Excellency.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Tita. To my dear colleagues, Excellency is not around. I go on to Dr. Cynthia Jacobs Carter, Chair, the Links Incorporated Eastern Area International Trends and Services, Dr. Constance M. Mosa, Co-Chair, Dr. Xuan Taka Sims, the Links Incorporated Eastern Area Director, Mrs. Anna Maria Bishop Harris, the Links Incorporated Eastern Area Program Coordinator, Mrs. Rachel Pittman, Executive Director, United Nations Association of the USA, Hon Teta Banks, Executive Committee of World Federation of United Nations Associations and former Consul General of Liberia. I'm also sure I heard like you, Teta, you are still the Consul General. If it's not showing well here, you please excuse me. I'm sorry for not being informed correctly. Happy International Women's Month to all women. I know today we are ending it, but we still are celebrating. I am honored and delighted to address you today at this important day when we come together and celebrate ourselves. Allow me to commend the leaders of the Links Incorporated Eastern Area for your dynamism and organizing this event. I've no doubt that this meeting will provide great outputs, ideas that will contribute to strengthen existing collaboration between the Links Incorporated chapters and African organizations, particularly women organizations. I may say that I've been participating to a number of events during this month to celebrate the International Women's Day, and I am glad that we are expanding the celebrations beyond one day. Indeed, March is our month as women to take a deep breath, evaluate ourselves, and decide on way forward. The empowerment and the participation of women is central. It is not only a development imperative, but also a matter of rights, inclusion, and democracy, since women make up more than half of the continent's population when we're talking of Africa continent. Developing on the theme for 2022, International Women's Day, which is Gender Equity Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow, I would like to present the African Union perspective in terms of policies focused on gender. The African Union has put in place key integration strategies for women empowerment that include the African Union strategy on gender equality and women's empowerment, 2018 to 2028. The decade launched during the AU Summit, February 2019. This strategy is transformational in the sense that its outcomes aim to mitigate, if not eliminate, the major constraints hindering gender equality and women's empowerment so that women and girls may participate fully in economic activities, political affairs, and social endeavors. 2020 to 2030 has been branded as the new decade of women's financial and economic inclusion. And this has happened during the 2020 AU Summit. And in this declaration, African leaders recommended to scale up actions for the progressive gender inclusion towards sustainable development of the national, regional, and continental levels. The Maputo Protocol, Scorecard, and INDEX, and the AU Gender Online Reporting Platform are continental instruments to support the implementation, monitoring, and the reporting of the obligations and allow in an assessment of the extent to which gender equality and women's rights obligations are implemented. And the African Women Leaders Network, launched in 2017 jointly by African Union Commission and the United Nations, with the objective of harnessing the wealth of African women's experience of leadership, is to strengthen their contributions to building and sustaining peace, security, political, economic, and the social processes on the continent towards the realization of Africa's Agenda 2063 In the SDGs, I heard someone talked about the Agenda 2063. Yes, it has its flagships that go a long way, which we're putting our fingers on, and they were putting our bet on that in 2030, Africa will be a different continent altogether. And with this contribution of the women working very hard towards that development. I go on to say the network is an unprecedented movement of African women in leadership positions who aim to serve as a vector for increased mobilization of women in diverse sectors. The network will make it possible for women to shape the path to peace and development on the continent. Ladies and gentlemen, you can see that Africa has progressive normative frameworks that guarantee gender equality in social, economic, and the political affairs. However, the continent still lags behind in realizing those goals. I would go further to say there is need to employ other strategies that make us go deep into the rural areas, deep into other areas in our continent where we have to be directly speaking to the women for them to realize their potential. You can see that Africa has progressive normative frameworks that guarantee gender equality in social, I've said this, economic and political affairs. As part of the efforts to turn the tide, the African Union launched on March 8th a campaign to rally more action to the commitments of gender equality and the women's empowerment. The campaign is called What African Women Want. That is the stage where we are, is the African women. And its objective is to popularize and advocate for the speedy and the full implementation of the African Union strategy for gender equality and the women's empowerment 2018 to 2028, as well as advocate for the implementation of programs earmarked as part of the African Women's Decade of Women's Financial and Economic Inclusion 2020 to 2030 at the national, regional, continental, and the global levels for women to realize, enjoy, and benefit from their rights and expand the spaces for empowerment. Yes, we have come up with this, what African women want. And this, as I've said earlier, we have to demonstrate it. We have to be on the ground with these women, making sure they understand what it means for them and what their potentials are, what they can contribute to the continent. In a push to make gender issues more visible, the What African Women Want campaign seeks to highlight key issues still faced by women in their pursuit of parity and equality, and it provides actionable recommendations to address the existing and emerging challenges. This campaign of What African Women Want constitutes an excellent venue for collaboration. Another opportunity for collaboration that links incorporate may consider is in the area of nutrition. In fact, the AU Summit of February 2022 decided that the theme for this year is building resilience in nutrition on the African continent, accelerate the human capital in social and economic development. For the African continent to achieve this vision, Africa needs to accelerate its continental integration processes, strengthen intra-Africa trade, enhance agricultural productivity, and put in place measures to address chronic food insecurity and nutrition deficiency, as well as address environmental and natural resources challenges, in particular climate change. As we celebrate the International Women's Month, the African Union's message is to work with our partners and put in place concrete measures and actions for for partnerships among Black women. I
Sure.
thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much. I know we're going to go into, we could talk for hours and hours in terms of what that includes, but we are going to have a quick dialogue with that. I'd like to bring on Deputy Chief Woods Winstead of the Liberian Embassy, representing Ambassador Patton. So Deputy Chief, I'd like you to sort of just give us a few remarks about where Liberia is in terms of its women, and then we hopefully will have questions right following your presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Banks. And I want to say thank you to all of you esteemed women for organizing this program. I bring you greetings on behalf of Ambassador Patton, who could not be here because of unforeseen circumstances tonight. Before I begin, I want to acknowledge the following distinguished personalities: Dr. Cynthia Jacobs Carter, Chair, the Links Incorporated Eastern Area International Trends and Services; Dr. Constance B. Morse, the Links Incorporated Eastern Area International Trends and Services; Dr. Shwana Turker-Sims, Links Incorporated Eastern Area Director; Ms. Anna Maria Bishop Harris, Links Incorporated Eastern Area Programs Coordinator; Ambassador Hilda Suka Mafodza, African Union Ambassador to the United States of America; Ms. Rachel Bowen Pittman, Executive Director, United Nations Associations of the USA; Honorable Tita Banks, Executive Committee of the World Federation of United Nations Association. I want to say thank you again. And I also wish to extend our thanks and appreciation to the Links Incorporated for this invitation extended to His Excellency Ambassador Patton to speak at this very important occasion on this very important theme, historic gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow. As you close out the International Women History Month, we also want to take this time to appreciate the Links Incorporated for her tireless efforts in working with the Memorial College High School in Monrovia and the AME Zion University to focus on female students. We are very appreciative. The inclusion of women at all levels of society is important and cannot be overemphasized. The conversation around gender equality, which should be heard even through patriarchal power systems, have been downplayed in the conversation in terms of the realization of rights and empowerment of women and girls. It is a reality indeed that the existing dominance of males in different fields remain a source of inequality. Goal 5 of the Sustainable Development Goals speak to achieving gender equality and empowering women and girls. Now, for this goal of the United Nations to be fully realized, development will not only be sustainable if it does not benefit women and it does not provide gender equality for women as well. We consider gender equality as a fundamental right for women as well. According to the United Nations Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, achieving gender equality and empowering women and girls in the unfinished business of our time and the greatest human rights challenge of our time. Liberia has made progress relative to achieving gender equality. However, there remain significant barriers that hinder women and girls, and some of them include early and forced marriages, female genital mutilation, reproductive and health issues, and strengthening of policies and enforcing legislation, ensuring full participation of women in leadership decision-making, amongst others. We are all aware of the role women play in bringing peace and stability to Liberia during the war years. The women of Liberia were very resilient. They were out in the streets. They were at the various peace talks in Accra and other surrounding countries, and they were at the forefront of peace talks and marches. In 2009, Liberia developed a national action plan on the implementation of the Resolution 1335, This plan outlines Liberia government's commitment to the United Nations Council Resolution on Women, Peace, and Security, which guarantees an inclusive society where rights of women and girls are protected, and it shows their full participation in peacekeeping and nation building. Also in 2009, a national gender policy was developed through a wide consultative process with input from various stakeholders. The goal of the national gender policy is to mainstream gender in the national development process, enhance women and girls' empowerment for sustainable and equitable development, and create and strengthen gender responsive structures and mechanisms in which both women and men can participate and benefit from development programs on equal basis. Also, the Domestic Violence Act of Liberia was passed in 2019. And this act was passed to help combat all forms of violence against women. Because of the war, there was a proliferation of violence against women. And one of those violence that's continuously perpetuated against women in Liberia is rape. And so the Domestic Violence Act was passed in 2019. The only thing that we thought was a loss was that FGM was pulled out of that act. And the fight is still on to have FGM, which is female genital mutilation, included, and also, have it as an amendment to that act. As we speak, an affirmative action bill which seeks to promote gender equality and ensure more participation of women in politics and election is still pending in the Liberian legislature. This is because there are opposition from men. We understand that Africa and the cultural stereotypes that we face in a male-dominated society cannot permit them to easily pass bills that will give them equality, with women. That is still an issue. However, we have made some progress in the participation of women in politics. As we all know, Liberia produced Africa's first female president, Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who is also a Nobel laureate. Our current vice president, Her Excellency Joel Howard Taylor, is also a female, and that is one of the gains that we celebrate today. And to add to that, there are several women heading key government positions in Liberia today. Our Ministry of Commerce, Gender, Agriculture, those ministers are female today. And then the head of our national oil company is also a woman. Even though these are little gains, we still celebrate them because we see that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one single step. There's also a number of women serving as deputy and assistant ministers, to include directors and ambassadors. Two of the justices of the highest court in Liberia, which is the Supreme Court, are also women. There is no doubt that women and girls have faced discrimination and are stereotyped in the workplace, communities, schools, etc., because of their gender. Oftentimes, women end up in low positions compared to their male counterparts. Also, girls end up in early and forced marriages with no one to speak up for them. The stories of discrimination against women and girls are many. We believe that these stories and many other stories should be told in order to remove these barriers for a sustainable tomorrow. As you close out the International Women's Month, allow us to extend our thanks to you for the remarkable work you are doing in the society and around the world today with your organization. When given the opportunity, women can do great things, which is a testament to what you are doing today. And we celebrate you all and all the women working around the world to make equitable and equality for women a success. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Deputy Chief. And please extend our congratulations and thank you to the ambassador. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Carter. We've had two wonderful presentations, one on the continental view and one specifically on Liberia, Dr. Carter.
And I thank you, and I thank our wonderful speakers. We have learned so much, and we have engaged in such um, a great way to culminate Women's History Month. Now and International Women's Month. I wanted to say to you, if anyone would like to add your chapter or your name to our chat, please feel free to do that. We will certainly acknowledge you as we can. And our time is winding down a bit, but this has been such a fabulous opportunity for us. I would like to acknowledge a couple of other people who have been key in helping us, and that is Troy Wolf. He is our contact person. He is our partner. He is a wonderful young man who helps us to carry out our programs with UNA USA. And in addition to that, there is the one and only Maria Bishop Harris. We have a little joke amongst us. Connie Moss, myself, and Anna Maria, we call ourselves the triplets. And we get our work done and we have fun doing it and we celebrate each other all along the way. I want to leave with you a couple of thoughts. One in particular, I'd like to give the youth, they're going to be our leaders. I'd like to give them a stage to stand on. Let me just leave you with a couple of thoughts from The Hill We Climb, and this is by Amanda Gorman. When day comes, we step out of the shade of flame and unafraid. The new dawn balloons as we free it, for there is always light if we are only brave enough to see it. If only we are brave enough to be it. So I want to leave that thought with you, but I would also like to see if our co-chair, Dr. Connie, has anything that she would like to say.
Thank you, Madam Chair of International Trends and Services, and my great friend. This has been a very informative session. You know, I'm a lifelong learner, and I'm sure that many that are on this Zoom session are as well. As has been stated in the chat, this is very informative. We have heard about history, which is wonderful. We can build upon that. We have heard about opportunities for future advancement, the need for concrete measures, and also action. And so as we continue our work in Liberia, with a focus, of course, on all international endeavors, we certainly appreciate the involvement and the insight that has been offered. We do have a lot of the attendees listing in the chat. There are chapters that are represented as well, and they are certainly appreciated for participating with us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. I'm going to cut to a few of these as we're about to wind down. I would really have to say Old Dominion, which is my chapter, they sent in a little note. Thank you. There is the Greater Bronx, New York chapter. There is, let's see. All right. We have again, Greater New York. We have Patuxent River chapter. And there is the Albany District chapter. There is, again, Richmond, Virginia chapter, and Niagara Falls. There's Prince George's County, our neighbors, Loudoun County, and I think, let's say, Greater New York again. Well, we want to say to each and every one of you that we enjoy partnering with you. Thank you for all that you have done for us, with us, for the world, for the young people and the women whose lives we are doing our best to help them to do their best. So what a way to end this month with friends like you. And we look forward to our next opportunities. And until then, I will say, please be safe, be well, and remember, the world is our oyster. So let's get to it. Thank you all so very much for participating. Thank you and good night.